Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have what again? You know what I always say, a great show for you today. I'm running a little bit behind today. Been trying to cut up some videos and do all that kind of stuff to make sure that we bring you something fresh all of the time. So we are going to have a good time for you today. I'm going to talk to you about the show, but beforehand, have you been watching the news? Have you been watching how the Attorney General really believed that we should be living in a dictatorship? Can you believe that the Attorney General will refer to those people as nursery school folk? I am trying to understand how people don't see, how many can't see the march to fascism, the march to dictatorship, that these guys are really attempting under your nose with a cult that's currently following them, and not seeing it because they've been made so filled with a disdain for anything that somebody else defines for them as progressive, defined for them as liberal, defined for them as some other. You know, there's a thing, and I think I spoke about this in the book as well, that we have to be careful of, right? The way these guys work. I always told people something, right? If you're a religious person and in church, please forgive. I am already begging for forgiveness for what I'm going to say here, but it's what I've seen when I was a member of a church before, etc. Etc. So I'm going to ask you, welcome David Salerno, welcome Bridge MCP, welcome Michael Rudnin, VQ. Look, again, for what I'm going to say, don't take this as a personal thing to you. Just take it as something that I have observed. And here's how it goes. I'm just going to say it. When you just join a church, right? When you just join a church, nobody comes and asks you for an offering. Welcome, Dimitri, Bruce, welcome aboard. Nobody comes and asks you for money, right? Because that's not the way it is done. When you start going to a new church initially, they give you admiration. They come to you and they make you feel at home. You are part of the family. You are all of these great things. They get your mind settled that I'm home. And that's how you feel. You just joined the church and I am home. And after you've been home and they've gotten you comfortable and they've adorned you and they've given you all these good feelings, then they start to say things like, we need to know what your W-2 is. And all these things because, as you know, 10% of your gross goes to us. But they don't tell you that immediately, right? And then after that, they tell you, the more you give, the more the Lord wants to give you. Actually, they don't tell you that they're giving the money for that Rolls Royce and that tax break here and that. They don't tell you that. But the bottom line is, if I can have your mind, I don't need to beg you. I don't need to put you in chains or anything like that. That's why I've always said slavery never ended, right? Never. It never did. It expanded. And I want you guys to listen to me. I am still a slave. You are a slave. We are all slave to an economic system. And I need us to understand that without feeling any kind of a negative feeling about it, right? In the case of black people, once you have completely demoralized a sect, and once you have completely messed with the values, at that point, you no longer need the pieces of metal to hold down. And for those who were not slaves, just letting them believe that they are a cut above, or letting them believe that there's something there that makes them different, that is enough to convince them that, this economic system, in as much as I don't have it this way, at least I'm not that way. We are all in this game together. All of us are in this game together. And Trump and his cabal knows how to play it with a T. I mean, right now he's still losing, and he's likely to lose big. But there is always a tipping point where you can get to somebody's mind and that carnality within that person's mind to have them do things like, sort of that animal part of the brain that just doesn't work rationally. Folks, if you're just joining us, please share the program. Please share, all of you that are listening. Beg you so kindly to share. This is how we get our message out. So that is what happens, right? So we no longer need chains. We no longer need all those structures to put you down. We no longer need any of that. And what, let's see, Egberto, I am not, and I would say you are not slaves. We are in a system of enslavement. Okay, Norman, I will cop to that, Norman. I will cop to that. Okay? So listen to Norman's errata for my words in his document, in his words there. So thank you so kind for sharing. So I will modify it. We're not slaves. Norman wants me to say we're not all slaves. What we are in an enslavement system. Okay, Norman, I get the difference that you want there, and I agree with you. Thank you. I agree with you. So what we have to do is we have to keep together. We have to make sure that this message gets out there. And not only that we don't allow the gradation of people. In other words, don't let them use fallacies to make you feel that somehow your neighbor, that you should be against your neighbors for some particular reason, because neither one of them wants to be either your neighbor or your neighbor's neighbor. They don't. You are just a tool. You are just a cog for a few. And the only way, though, that few can make it is if we are all looking at each other with concern. If we are all looking at each other thinking, oh my God, what is Egberto going to do? I need to get ahead of Egberto. I need to get ahead of Norman. I need to get ahead of Marianne Richards Castiglia. I need to get rid of Dimitri OG. I need to get ahead of Bridge MCP. I need to get rid of Rodman Pollard. No. Let me tell you something. All these are behaviors that we have learned from and have been used against us. And once we decide to think on our own, once we decide not to let anybody tell you that, well, that person is bad, that other person is this, that other person, then we can move forward. I promise you that. But anyway, let's go ahead and get busy with the program. I needed to start with that kind of a rant because I hear a lot of times some demoralization. Yes, today is Constitution Day. I hear a lot of people sometimes gets demoralized when they start to think, well, we're in a bad situation. And my thing is like, no, we're in a situation that we have control over still. We still have control over this situation. We have to get the cabal that's in office out of office now. Is the new cabal that's going to come into office any better? It is substantially better, but it's still a cabal, a neoliberal cabal that we need to get rid of as well. But in time, we creep, we walk, sometimes we fall, we get up, we creep, we walk, we get up, and we move forward. Okay. Title of the show today. Let me put that up on the screen, my brothers and my sisters. Let's go. Vámonos. ¿Por qué no puedo tener esa cosa ahí? There we go. Title of the show is Maddow, Trump willing to let 2.15 million die. Documentary maker discusses illegal, the film. Trump is willing to sacrifice 2.15 million people, folks. And he really doesn't care. And I showed you the video yesterday where Trump wasn't concerned about wearing a mask because he was far away from the crowd. That's what he told the reporter. I'm sorry I didn't cue that one up, and I think I deleted that. It's on YouTube right now. But Trump says, oh, no, we don't need to worry about those people. But we worry about you. And by the way, reporter, you're a bit too close to me. So Trump wants all his people adoring him without masks, adoring him, praying to Trump, praying to the great Trump Almighty. But the reporter can't get too close to Trump because if he gets too close or she gets too close to Trump, she may infect him. People, you have to understand the mentality of this guy, and you have to try to break some of those on the right who believe this guy cares. They showed a little clip where Trump was leaving the stage, and he turned around to his adoring fans, and he said, "You know I'm with you." And we know it's a lie, right? We know it's a lie. But there's nothing like you feeling somebody that's in power has your back. And as long as he keeps that belief that he has your back, a lot of people would continue to believe he have your back. And that's what they believe. Anyhow, second topic. So the topics are: Rachel Maddow gave a piercing expose on the type of herd immunity Trump is willing to entertain. I shortened it and deconstructed it. Former RNC chair Michael Steele has had it. Can we vote now, he asks. Laz Ayala, a documentary producer, talk about undocumented workers and their plight and reasons. And we were able to have some discussions given that we are both from Central America. He just made a documentary that's been to good acclaim going around the country at these different events. And he's going to talk about it here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start it with, let's go ahead and start with Rachel, and then we'll take it thereafter. Rachel Maddow's last piece on Donald Trump and herd immunity is something that you have to see. I cut it down quite a bit, but I think you should really enjoy what we have here. Check this out.
The president has brought into the White House has apparently convinced the president on herd immunity. And so this is now what we're going to do. And this has been written off, I think, as some of the president's usual nonsense. It's not worth paying too much attention to. But don't just watch what he says, watch what he's doing. And we can now pair these almost laughable, he can't remember the right words, can't spit it out words from him with what he's actually doing. And when it's not just what he's saying, it's what he's doing, we have to recognize this as a huge deal. Because what the president is letting us know is that what's going to happen in our country, with or without a vaccine, is that we will aim for herd immunity. Not just saying it, we now know he's doing it. And let's do the math on this, right? The idea behind this cockamamie theory, which is apparently our national policy now, which is why North Dakota isn't being told to mask up anymore. The idea behind this cockamamie theory is that in the absence of a vaccine, maybe enough people will get infected by this disease and survive it and become immune from it that their very existence will help slow down the spread of the virus in the future. That's how it will come to a halt. We don't know if getting infected with COVID actually prevents you from getting it in the future. I mean, look at the WHO's latest advice on this subject. Question: does the presence of antibodies against COVID-19 mean a person is immune and protected from being infected again? Answer: no one knows yet. If you don't like the WHO, ask the Mayo Clinic. Quote, it isn't yet clear if infection with the COVID-19 virus makes a person immune to future infection. So scientifically, we don't even know. If it turns out that you can get it once and then you can get it again, the whole premise of this goes out the window in terms of it having any beneficial effect to infect lots of people whatsoever. For the purposes of trying to figure out what the president is trying to do to us here, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's assume that the science goes his way on this. Let's assume that getting infected does make you immune. Let's let our next assumption be just as rosy. Per the Mayo Clinic again, quote, experts estimate that in the United States, 70% of the population would have to be infected with COVID-19 and recover from it to be able to halt the epidemic. Let's be super generous and rosy in our assumptions and say, A, definitely everybody who gets it is immune. And let's also say it's not 70%, it's only 65% of the country that needs to get infected in order to make this new White House plan work. And again, what's the plan?
We use the word herd, right? Once you get to a certain number, it's going to go away.
We like the fact that there's a lot of cases. That's exactly how we're going to get herd immunity, population immunity.
You'll develop herd, like a herd mentality.
Well, do the math. We're 330 million people in this country. Under this plan, they'd need 65% of 330 million people to be infected. They'd need 215 million Americans to be infected. Right now, we've got roughly 6.6 million people infected in this country and roughly 200,000 Americans dead, which means our fatality rate cumulatively in this country is just under 3%. It's 2.97% of all people who've been diagnosed with COVID-19 in this country have died with it. If that fatality rate stays the same and we go for herd mentality, I mean herd immunity, then what he's aiming for is 215 million Americans infected, 2.97% of them dead. That is 6,385,500 Americans dead. Now, let's rosy up our assumptions a little bit. In terms of the fatality rate, right, this is a president who keeps lying about treatment, about hydroxychloroquine being a miracle cure. But again, let's be rosy. Let's say the therapeutics do come around, like they keep saying on Fox News and like the president says at the Republican convention. Let's say the U.S. cumulative death toll from people infected with COVID drops all the way to 1%. Even still, with this herd mentality, herd whatever, herd it'll go away plan, the president is planning, best case scenario, even if we triple our cumulative survival rate thus far, he's planning on killing off 1% of 215 million Americans who he wants to get infected. Which means the White House plan, with all of the rosiest assumptions you can factor into it, is to kill off 2.15 million Americans, which is considerably more than 10 times the number of us who've died already. 2.15 million dead. That's the best case scenario. That's the plan. The 1918 flu killed 675,000 Americans. World War II killed roughly 400,000 Americans. World War I killed roughly 115,000 Americans. The Vietnam War killed nearly 60,000 Americans. The new plan, what they're actually doing now, not just talking about, but doing now, is to stop trying to contain the virus, to let it just run through us as a population, because the more people are infected, the better. And honestly, because trying to stop infections has proved to be too hard for this president. I mean, all the other civilized countries on earth can handle it. He doesn't want to try to contain it anymore, and so he is planning on letting it run through us while he doesn't do much of anything in terms of intervention. Open everything up. Open the schools. Don't bother with masks. Let's hold indoor rallies. Let's spread it all over. Let's just stop the testing, right? Demand the return of college football. Bring everything back full speed, transmission unabated, because he says it will stop on his own.
It would go away without the vaccine? Sure, over a period of time. Sure, with time. It goes many deaths. And you'll develop herd, like a herd mentality. It's going to be herd developed, and that's going to happen. That will all happen.
This is a real thing the president is bumbling through here. We now know, based on documents exposed by the Congress, we now know that this is not something he is just saying. This is something that he is doing and his administration is putting into effect. That is the herd immunity idea that Sweden tried for a while, which gave them the worst death toll in Northern Europe until they panicked and stopped. It's what the UK tried to do for a hot minute till they realized it was going to give them the worst per capita death toll in Western Europe. When the president started sidelining the actual epidemiologists and infectious disease doctors in the government because he instead wanted to go with a guy he saw on Fox News who likes the herd immunity idea, even though he's not even this kind of doctor. When the president dropped the real public health doctors and instead put this guy in charge, and then all of a sudden the U.S. government stopped recommending that people get tested. When we started cottoning to the fact that this wasn't some stupid viral Facebook meme that the president was repeating without being able to pronounce it, that this was actually the policy he's turning this country toward. Former colleagues of Scott Atlas at the medical school he used to be affiliated with tried to sound the alarm, warning that this guy, who appears to be running U.S. policy now, really doesn't know what he's talking about. And specifically on the herd immunity idea, he fundamentally doesn't know what he's saying, which is interesting in personnel terms. It's kind of hilarious about Dr. Scott Atlas and his career as a Fox News Channel contrarian radiologist. But this is also the plan that the U.S. government is following now. I thought the first time he burbled it out, it was some sort of kind of random emission.
Well, once you get to a certain number, we use the word herd, right? Once you get to a certain number, it's going to go away.
That was a couple of weeks ago from him. And maybe he was just random generating syllables, but now he's repeating it. And from what we've learned about how his administration has shut off its previous private recommendations to states to try to slow down the spread, now we know this is not just what he is saying and repeating, this is what he's going with.
It would go away without the vaccine? Sure, over a period of time. Sure, with time. It goes many deaths. And you'll develop herd, like a herd mentality. It's going to be herd developed, and that's going to happen. That will all happen.
It is one thing to have somebody in the job of president who doesn't know what he's talking about and doesn't know that herd mentality and herd immunity are two different things. It's preposterous. But he does mean herd immunity is what we're going for. And that does, if it works, it does aim for between 2.1 and 6.4 million Americans dead on purpose, because he'd rather do that than do what every other country in the world has done and implement policies to contain this. Policies to contain this thing, that's too hard for him. So he'll go with millions dead instead. 48 days till the election.
Donald Trump has been trying for herd immunity from the time he heard about it, because I think he understood two things. One, if he went for herd immunity, people will continue to die, yes. If he could keep that under wraps, cool. But the economy would not suffer as much as if we had to hold people back. Because if you could convince people that first of all, COVID is the flu, and the flu is something you recover from. And yes, some people are going to die from it, but you somehow normalize people dying from it. It is then okay. Your economy continues to run even as people are getting sick because, yeah, it's 4 or 5 times the death rates of the flu. But, people can learn to accept a whole lot of things like they've learned to accept Donald Trump. But I think deeper. I think it's not that he planned it, but I think he already saw a way to monetize it. And if you looked at several of the other videos we did, you could see that Donald Trump has been consistently monetizing COVID. Opening up the country again revitalizes the economy, convincing people that only a few will die. I mean, the whole thing is macabre, but it is very Trumpian. And not only is it Trumpian, in his eyes, in his mind, it is okay. It's transactional, and we can make a buck off of it. So yes, he's willing to sacrifice 2+ million Americans to keep a sound economy or to keep an economy flowing where he can monetize it for his people, and to hell with everything else. And the people that are its initial guinea pigs are his own. But after I did that video, I went ahead and started to think a little bit deeper. And I want you guys to take a look at it. This is very, very important. And actually, these are certain things that even some of the people who you talk about, oh, they'll never change. They will change. I mean, look. If somebody starts to feel pain, they change. I did a blog earlier today with a minister in, I don't remember, I think it's in Utah, who was a complete sycophant for Donald Trump, and they started to open up their church, and everybody could come to their church without mask on. They didn't change the policy because, they're ashamed. They don't want to do it. But the wife of the pastor who's in intensive care right now, and she is sick with COVID right now. She said, oh, we didn't know it was so bad. You have to be really careful with this. So they're not changing their policy, but they're out there telling people this is serious, this is bad. So what do you think is going to happen? The church doesn't tell them they have to wear masks, but suggests that they do. So what I'm trying to tell you is that Michael Rodnin just hit the magic word. Takes a personal hit for conservatives to change. That's why the Indiana senator, when he found out his son was gay, suddenly he supported gay rights, etc., etc., etc. Anyhow, I have another video, but before I go with that video, there's another thing I wanted to tell you with regards to herd immunity. Our healthcare system does not have the capacity to have the amount of sick people that we would have trying to get to herd immunity. But here's the worst part about it. Herd immunity is only valid if after you get the disease, you can stay off the disease for several months or years. In other words, if after you get the disease, you can get it again in 3 months or whatever, herd immunity does not work. And so, these are things that they don't tell you that we all have to know. Our healthcare system is not capable of doing it. Now, that said, the government will be paying those corporations that are storing you or pumping you up with all these things. They'll pay them a lot of money. So it continues to be a wealth transfer engine, but do remember that. Important. Now, what do we think about these people? Some of our good friend Michael Steele, former RNC chair and now somebody on the Lincoln Project, he thinks like some of our brothers and sisters in the room who says to hell with them. Check what he had to say and then we'll move on. Well, the former chair of the RNC, Michael Steele, could take it no more. Check this out. Let's take it on the other side.
Top 10 U.S. states for coronavirus deaths include the following: one by Trump in 2016, Texas, Florida, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia. Michael, a lot of his base lives in that list.
They do, and they don't care. To Gene's point, I've talked to enough of them over the last few days. I'm exhausted. I'm exasperated. At this point, it's like save who you can save, because there's only so much you can do. There's only so much you can say. The fact that we have to literally beg people to wear a mask to save their own dumbass from getting sick? I'm sorry. I just, to me, it is beyond the imagination. I'm with John Hyman. I am just so exhausted with this president at this point in the face of what we see happening on college campuses right now. As we turn into fall, we all knew this was coming, and yet this administration has done jack about it. This president stands at a podium today and not only contradicts his CDC director, but basically says he perjured himself under oath before Congress because he is saying something different from Donald Trump. The CDC director is telling us the truth, and Donald Trump is literally lying to us. And yet 40% of the country looks at it and goes, yeah, I'm with stupid. So look, America, at this point, you have a stark choice in the face of everything that's going on. I don't know what more you can take before you say you've had enough, because my heavens, this is too much for a country to go through, between trying to stop elections from taking place, 200,000 Americans dead with nothing more than just a count on a board for this president, to what we see happening now. You have to make a stark choice this fall. And I don't know what else to say. I don't know how many more of these conversations we can have, Brian. I just don't know, because I'm a little bit tired of it. I'm just ready. Can we vote like right now? Can we just get this done so we can heal the country and move on? Because this issue is crazy.
This is, in fact, crazy. But, you know, when you have a segment of the population that somehow got consumed by something that we don't know, that we don't understand, this is what we get. The other thing that we have to start putting out there is what Powell spoke about today, the head of the Federal Reserve. He came out today and said he's keeping interest rates near zero because it's and he was very worried as he said it. He is very scared of what is coming. The stock market is doing fine. You know, we've talked about the stock market before. There's a reason why it's doing fine, but everything else is going to hell rather quickly. We don't televise it. The depression will not be televised, but we have to start where Michael Steele ended. We need to vote, get this stuff over with, and start anew. But as far as Michael Steele is correct, it is time to move on. Let's make sure to go out there and vote. Let's move on. Now, Michael Steele is right. I love what I just heard from Ian James Chapman. Dumbing down of America has become lethal. Exactly. And that is why we are doing what we are doing. And notice I didn't say that's why I am doing what I'm doing. That is why we are doing what I'm doing. Why I ask you to share this stuff. And that is why I ask you, let's all look, what Michael Steele has a right to say, throw your hands up in the air, right? But if we are to exist as a country, if we are going to continue, we can't just throw our hands up into the air, right? We are going to have to just keep at it. You know, it's like you have a kid and your kid does wrong and you just like keep with that kid. You just try with that kid. You just keep it till you finally, or you're like a virus. You finally hit that thing that is going to that's going to allow that attachment and to infect them with your knowledge. By the way, talking about infecting, my new book, folks, please go ahead and get that. I'm putting the link in the feed right now. It is called It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors. We're at half the show right now, and that's why I'm putting this in now. So check the book out. Please order it. I have the link in there. It's called It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors. Why? Because in as much as what Salerno said, that we need to get new voters, we also still don't leave people behind. You have relatives that you feel are completely and impossible to change. But I can guarantee you, even if you change 10, 15% of them, their change will eventually metastasize slowly. And it's not going to happen overnight. And we're going to have relapses. That's going to happen. Folks, I also need to ask you to support the show. Please go to patreon.com. Patreon.com. There is the link. politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. You can also support us at politicsdoneright.com. Whoops, I'm missing that. politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. And of course, you can, if you're on YouTube right now, please join our YouTube family. It's cheap, cheap, and we are doing a good thing. You're doing a good thing. So just click that join button if you are on YouTube. And it's, I'll just tell you, it's $1.99, man. And that's what it is. And what that does is it help us continue doing what we need to do, how to get the message out. There is the link for YouTube. For those that are not on YouTube but are willing to go on YouTube, you can go ahead and click on that to subscribe to us on YouTube. And by the way, if you're on YouTube as well, if you don't want to do the subscription, you can click a super chat. That super chat says, hey, we like what you're doing. Bingo and super chat. Okay, we are going to go ahead and bring in El Señor Laz Ayala now. We had a great conversation. Check this out, and then we'll move on the other side. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being with us. Today I have Laz Ayala. Laz Ayala is the producer of Illegal, the film, and the founder of Illegal, the project. Laz Ayala, welcome aboard Politics Done Right.
Thank you for having me with you.
Look, let me first of all say that as an immigrant myself, one from Central America, I understand all that has been going on in the country. I understand all the permutations thereof. And it's great to see that somebody decided to encapsulate this in a film and in a project. I know there are others doing it, but the way you're doing it, I think fusing them together is just excellent. So why don't you first tell me a little bit about this project, and then we'll go into the realities of what's going on with the fires on the West Coast, etc.
Sure. Well, first of all, like you, I'm also an immigrant from Central America. I came here from El Salvador back in 1981, fleeing from a civil war that devastated my native country. I was 14 years old, came here in 1981, went through the experiences that many, if not every immigrant, in particular, every undocumented immigrant goes through. I came here undocumented at that time. And that was almost 40 years ago. And I have to say that in the 40 years that I have lived in this country, I have very, very few times paused to think about or to feel attacked or to feel denigrated at the degree that I feel immigrants are today criminalized and dehumanized. And so when this narrative started with, our candidate, then candidate Trump 7 years ago, of referring to immigrants as criminals and drug dealers and tax cheats and essentially rapists and murderers and less than humans, essentially, I felt like my own dignity and my own humanity was under attack, and of course that of other immigrants that have come here the same way that I did. And I waited for years for someone, for an organization, for an individual, leaders in the country to come up and give a voice to our story. Frankly, after waiting for years and not seeing much happening on that end at a national level, in the national conversation, I decided to, and it was not an easy decision, let me be clear, to do, because of the potential repercussions that could involve. But I came to terms with the fact that I needed to do something, I needed to speak up, and so I did. And I started speaking at Rotary clubs here in Southern Oregon, where I live today. And of course, that led to writing some op-eds that were published in the local newspapers. And that really empowered me. And of course, I got a lot of support from the community, from the Rotary clubs and the community at large. And the message that I was sharing with them was very well received, and I felt it was timely. So getting that kind of support from the community empowered me to think of ways to make a bigger impact. And the way that I, at that time, decided that I could have that impact was to write a book about my story, but not just my story, but also featuring the overarching story of immigration, particularly undocumented immigration, in terms of the story, the myths and facts and the real issue, the underlying issue behind all of this. And so I began that process of writing this book. And as I was completing the book, I met a local filmmaker, and we decided to then turn this book into a film. Essentially, we had the script for the film at the time. And so we took that and we put a team together of individuals, and we embarked on the production of a 78-minute feature film, Illegal, which is now being featured at film festivals all over the country, This week has been featured at the Klamath Falls Independent Film Festival. But we have been accepted to a number of film festivals: Richmond, Virginia, Beverly Hills Film Festival, Burbank Film Festival, Las Vegas. There's a whole list of them. And your audience can, of course, find out about those, screenings taking place today on our website, illegaltheproject.org. So that effort of the book, the film, has now turned into essentially a movement, and we have had opportunities like the one that you are giving us today to talk about the issue, to talk about the topic from our perspective, the perspective of an immigrant like myself, perhaps like you and others, and to engage the national public in this conversation, telling our story, our perspective, and also pushing for common sense legislation that we hope will address the issue of illegal immigration today.
Now, what's important is that you have that lived experience. I think what you're telling me is that you came in from first of all, is illegal about your story, or did you use your story in composite with other people's story to create this narrative?
Yes, it's a composite of stories in the film and in the book.
Excellent, excellent. Well, what I like then is that it is told from a perspective of somebody who actually lived it. And I think that is very important. My immigrant story would be different than your immigrant story, in that I came over on a student visa, and after I got a student visa, I got sponsored and so forth. You came here in dire straits with your life. I remember flying into El Salvador when at the airport there were gunners at the airport. That's what I flew into El Salvador back early in the 80s. Okay, so I understand the plight of the Salvadorians that are coming over to the United States, something that very few people understand or realize that it could be their reality. But anyhow, so in telling your story, in telling people what this was all about, did you feel that you had a captive audience not related to, let's say, the immigrant? In other words, is this done in a manner that you will make aware to many others this plight and why they should be interested in this plight?
Well, my focus from the very beginning has been the mainstream public. The mainstream public. In other words, leaders, business people, and really the mainstream public, meaning our Caucasian communities and our Caucasian friends. Because at the end of the day, if we don't engage them, if we don't educate them, if we don't lead in those communities, they're expecting us to take this leadership. They're expecting us to lead in this conversation, because only us understand this, what it is firsthand, and only we can speak about it in a way that tells the story. Mm-hmm. And it's for us to lead in this conversation. So yes, my focus was on the mainstream public, and really keeping it also apolitical. That was
my other question, because I mean, you're in a political show, right, and you said that this particular subject, and that's probably best if it can be done in and I don't necessarily say apolitical, but in a neutral manner, because everything is political actually,
right?
In a manner that isn't maybe party based, but more like
exactly.
You said, humanization. So continue, please.
So in the book and in the film, I mean, we don't go after any particular politicians. We really try to be pragmatic and objective in presenting the facts and also proposing solutions to address the problem. And the issue, that I see is that you hear politicians and you hear people in the mainstream community even wanting to help folks who are affected by this conversation and by the mistreatment of our government, in some cases, of immigrants. But nothing really is talked about, or not much is said about the underlying issue, the root of the problem. Why is it that we have illegal immigration in the first place? Well, let's talk about that. Why is it that we have this system of illegal employment that has for decades, right? I can say the last 6 decades, the last 60 years, has been attracting a a workforce of undocumented workers who have no rights, who have no vote, who have no voice, who are taxed, who are then dehumanized, marginalized, exploited, to the degree that I compare the system to modern day slavery. Why is it that that conversation has not been taking place? And that is the focus of my conversation. So I ask that question. I say, well, here is why. And I propose and I present my perspective as to the reasons why the system exists. And it exists by design. It doesn't exist by coincidence. Let's be honest. The laws have been written in a way that it attracts people from third world countries to come out here and just give their sweat and give their lives for meager wages, where they have really very little to no opportunity to move up, and where they are today even mistreated as if they are less than humans. This problem is not there by coincidence. It's there by design and the design of our own government. This is an institutionalized problem. Now, first, let's understand that. Let's understand that we cannot blame the immigrants who come here seeking illegal employment, because our system is designed to allow for illegal employment to occur. So they come here because they know that there's a black market for labor, for illegal labor. Now, if we want to address the issue of illegal immigration and illegal employment, we need to be talking about enforcing the laws or changing the laws so that we prevent illegal employment. And then if we conclude that we need this foreign labor to support our industries such as agriculture, construction, hospitality, which, by the way, immigrants are the backbone of those industries. And if we agree that we need that labor, support these industries and our economy, then let's create then a legal and humane path to allow these families to come here. Not necessarily to settle, because as you probably know, and as I know, not everyone wants to settle here. And in fact, a great majority of the undocumented working population who risked their lives getting here don't want to settle here. They're coming here to work, to make some money. They don't want to be separated from their families abroad, and in many cases we are, for years, sometimes decades, right? And still living in the shadows without the possibility for one day
Repatriating.
integrated into the mainstream
Right.
community, or much less be able to return to our communities without risking not ever being able to come back. So we have the system that separates families abroad, and once we get here and we start to establish ourselves, then ICE comes and separates us from our families here, and we're always fleeing, and we're in this constant state of flight.
Flux. Yeah. Now, let me tell you, Laz, first of all, I must disagree with you strongly that you're making something apolitical, because my brother, your statement was such a strong, well delivered political statement. It may not be partisan, but it is
Sure.
sure political, and it's a very important political message. So I want to thank you for that. Now, here's the interesting thing, because you made a very important point that I want to sort of elaborate on and actually make it a bit, put it out there again. And that is, the system was designed for the way things are running today, because otherwise there would be there would be punitive penalties on employers who employ these undocumented workers, and if there is no demand, there would be no supply trying to reach that demand. That is the first thing. It's a con. It has always been a con on the average American citizen, and the immigrant has always been used as a tool. We hate them when we need to hate them. We bang them when we need to bang them, and we try to get rid of them, like even Roosevelt did when we need to get rid of them.
Right.
So, I mean, that has always been the status of this country. And I think documentaries like yours telling the truth is essential, so that Americans in general, because while I love what you said in the beginning, you're trying to enlighten, you're trying to instruct, inform the masses. That's what's necessary, because this information isn't for the masses. The masses are have so much bad information. They're so misinformed. with the true immigrant scenario, they don't really get it. They don't understand that immigrants are the backbone of this country. Just like slavery is what enriched this country, immigrants played their part in enriching this country as well. And so, I mean, I am thankful for that book. And I think you gave a good preamble. I'll put all the information about your book in the blog. Now, is there anything else you want to say about your project before I ask you a few questions about what's occurring on the West Coast right now?
Well, you know, about the project, so our goal is not just to humanize the conversation and to educate, right? Which, by the way,
Laz, I want to, you know, I mean, you're the guest, but there's one thing that I always try to do in my thing, because you're a human being, I'm a human being, and everybody else are a human being. What I don't I sometimes I get into trouble by saying I don't like the word. I am trying to humanize you. I can't humanize that which is already human. Okay.
well,
Trying to make others realize that we're just as human as they are.
right, I'm trying to humanize the conversation because the conversation has been dehumanized.
Okay, that accepted.
Right. The conversation has been dehumanized. In other words, we have removed the human element out of the conversation, at least the mainstream conversation.
Got it. Got it.
Got it.
Got it.
Okay. So besides that, we are also proposing what I believe are sensible solutions to the problem. The problem, if you want to call that a problem, of illegal immigration or illegal employment, again, is there because it has been designed that way. Now, if we want to fix it, and I believe that we need to fix it, because not only is it the humane thing to do, is it the right thing to do for the workers and for the employers and for the economy and for our democracy and for the country. Not only is it the right thing to do morally and in every other sense of the word, it is actually what many employers want. They want a reliable workforce that is not subject to raids and arrests and deportation that will disrupt their businesses, number one. The worker wants the same. The worker wants an opportunity that is humane and legal to come here, work for a season, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, whatever the case might be, return to their communities, take their hard-earned dollars, reinvest those dollars in their communities, reunite with their families, build businesses there, and create and promote economic sustainability in those communities, which in the long term would help with the economic crisis that many communities and countries live. If we're not stealing their human capital and we're relying for their human capital to return with money, with investment, that is long-term economic sustainability. And that is what people really want. So what I'm advocating for is for an expansion and a overhauling of our current guest worker program to allow more visas, guest worker visas, for the industries that depend on foreign labor, so that these individuals can come here in a legal and humane way and be allowed to return to their communities. It's that simple. But in tandem with that, we are also advocating for the enforcement of E-Verify and immigration laws with the employers, so that we can then eliminate the demand for illegal labor, create a demand for legal labor, guest workers with visas who come here, work humanely, legally, return to their families, remain united with their families in their native communities. That's the solution. And it's a solution that will not cost even close to a fraction of the $8 billion that we currently spend on immigration enforcement. Most of that money, by the way, goes towards private detention facilities where detainees are held at the cost of $120 per day, where they are treated like as a commodity, where these facilities have no incentive to release people, and where people are held for months and sometimes years because these institutions have no incentive to release them.
No, they make money from them.
Profiting.
Yeah.
Exactly. And currently we're spending $8 billion a year on enforcement. We can solve this by revamping our guest worker program and having tough enforcement with the employers that would result in a legal path for people to come here to work and humane path to solve the situation at a fraction of the cost that we're spending today, without building a $20 billion wall, which in my opinion will do nothing to address the issue in the end.
No, it's the wall is there to really make some money for a few contractors. But Laz, how do you intend to effectuate that? Are you working with politicians, I imagine, to try to write legislation? What are you doing?
So the first step is to create public awareness and engagement, and we're doing that through the film and through the book and through conversations like the one that you and I are having right now, and reaching the public nationwide. Once we build that engagement, public engagement, we can then be more powerful as a group that gets behind this idea, behind this solution. And by having all of us reach out to our legislators, I and our group here in Southern Oregon, we have met with our senators, we have met with our legislators, we are starting to have those conversations, but it's going to take pressure from the general public, the mainstream public nationwide, to appeal to our legislators to bring this concept to the table, this idea to the table, and why are we not talking about this, and find some real solutions. Because in my mind, both major parties have done nothing but blow smoke up people's ears, let's say. And the reality is that it's all lip service and there are no solutions. And frankly, I am frustrated, as you can tell by the tone of my voice, because neither party right now, neither presidential candidate has put forth a real immigration reform solution. If you read through what's on their website, it's nothing but lip service. There's nothing specific that addresses the problem. What I'm proposing is very specific and is very detailed, and we have a 22-page white paper plan that lays out the issue, the problem, and the solution.
Well, Laz, I mean, I think what you're doing is exactly what needs to be done. Politicians are not leaders, and that when we realize that then we're more effective. They go wherever the wind is blowing, and if the wind is blowing through what we're doing, see how quickly they jump on the bandwagon. Okay, Laz. Well, look, we're on the blog post for this particular edition of Politics Done Right. We'll include all the information as far as how people can find your book, how people can find your film, etc., etc. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in Oregon. I don't see you with a gas mask on. Are you close to where the fires are, or?
Fire, the most devastating fire started just about a half a mile from my house, from where I'm at right now.
Wow.
And I thought this time last week, I really thought that I was going to lose my house and that our entire city was going to just be devastated by the fire. We were lucky here where I live in Ashland, Oregon, but our neighboring cities to the north, adjacent cities, were not as fortunate. And we have lost here in our larger community over 2,400 homes in these fires.
Wait. 2,400 homes just in your section of Oregon?
Yep, just right here in Jackson County where I live.
Wow, I didn't realize it was, I knew it was bad, I didn't realize. Now, who lives in these homes? Are a lot of the immigrant community, etc.?
So we have lost entire communities. There was a 55 and older, two 55 and older communities. One was a conventional stick-built community homes. There was like 70 homes in there that all of them were wiped out. In fact, there were two of those. And then there was a couple of other mobile home communities, retirees, and some that were housing a lot of blue-collar workers, working-class people, families that lost their homes and lost all of their belongings. We have people here in Jackson County right now living in tents, in parking lots at Walmart, at the fairgrounds, in hotels. And so the community has come together to provide support for these families. And so that's what I've been working on, which is why you see me here in this hat and kind of casual and still haven't shaved. But there's just a very community-wide effort to provide the basic essentials, food, water, shelter to people, the immediate need, and then also to be thinking about how to rebuild. We're talking now about rebuilding and finding more long-term solutions for these families before winter gets here in a couple of months.
Now, do you have any reputable links, websites that we can send people to?
Definitely. So KOBI Channel 5, one of our TV stations here locally, on their website, they have a list of all the different organizations, reputable organizations that are raising funds for the relief of the damage by the fire. People can go there. United Way has been a fantastic organization here in Jackson County, really supporting the need. And like them, there's a number of other organizations, local, nationwide. The Red Cross has been very involved. So people can make donations to these organizations. They can go to KOBI Channel 5, get the list of organizations that are raising money for different areas of relief for the families. And so I would encourage them to go there. If they can, of course, provide funding, make donations, they can get that information there.
Laz Ayala, producer of Illegal, the film, and founder of Illegal, the project. It was my pleasure to have you on board Politics Done Right. Thank you for what you're doing. It is very important work as an immigrant to another immigrant. Again, I think it's something that needs to get done.
Solutions come from the bottom up, not top down. And it's going to require all of us to engage and to demand common sense solutions. Solutions will not come to us otherwise. We have to lead. As President Obama once said, we are the change we seek.
Thank you.
All right. Good day.
I hope you like that, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. We have a whole lot more things lined up. Not done yet, but to bring of that kind of nature. Now, I want to ask you guys as well if there are people that you want to see interviewed because you think they're making a difference in our society. Just go ahead and pass them along. Give them our email, info@politicsdoneright.com. We'll be more than happy to put them on here because remember that is our job. Our job here is to put people on that are doing great things in society that on the mainstream media you won't find them there, but we will use all our resources, meaning internet, KPFT, all these other places to get their voices out. And if you have something that you need to say and that you want to come on and say as well, remember this is your show and we also want to have you because everybody's voice matters. Everybody's voice matters. In this country, we kind of have these people who decide whose voices matter, decide which music is worth it. You remember when you used to have all those record companies that decided who is going to be the next record star? Well, no, that's not how it runs anymore. How it runs is if you have something to say, you deserve to have your platform to say it. So whether you use your own or you decide to come on Politics Done Right to do something that makes sense for society, please do remember you have a home. Folks, if you're on YouTube, please support our show. Click on join. Entra con nosotros. Join. And I forgot what join is in Spanish. Shame. Anyhow, join us. Just click that join button and become a supporter. Please go ahead and get my book. It's worth it. How to talk to your right-wing relatives, friends, and neighbors. You can still get a few more votes for the good side by following some of the stuff that we talk about. And also by us learning together all this stuff, we can actually make a difference. I thank you so kindly for being here with me. I know there's so much on the internet you could be elsewhere. That you spend this time with me, I am genuinely, from the depths of my heart, I know the feelings is real in the brain, but from the depths of my heart, thank you so kindly for being here with me. Love you all my folks from Ace. Some of the messages are having me laughing now. From Rudnin to MCP to Nanette Bird. I gotta call out my people, man. Nanette Bird, welcome. I'm only about 30 seconds late. Nanette Bird, welcome aboard. Bridge MCP, welcome aboard. A Masticator, welcome aboard. Tank 28, welcome aboard. Carmen Alagahu, welcome aboard. Bruce Pollard, welcome aboard. Norman Reynolds, welcome aboard. Mark Demon, welcome aboard. Troy Astro, welcome aboard. I saw a new person come in. Mark Damon, yes, I got you, brother Mike. David Salerno, welcome aboard. Bruce Pollard, welcome aboard. Dimitri OG, welcome aboard. I think I got Norman Reynolds already. Marianne Richards Castiglia, welcome aboard. My coffee party colleague and very good friend. Love you, Marianne. Ian James Chapman, welcome aboard. I hate missing people, you know what I mean? If you're here, you deserve to be called out. Para ver quién más está aquí. I don't see anybody. If I missed you, forgive me, okay? I got to get out of here. Roberto Luis, mi panameño, mi pana. Welcome aboard. This is Egberto Willis. Politics Done Right. You guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! I'm Egberto Willis, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.